Welcome to the second part of this event, and I hope you had a relaxing break. We are ready to speak now at a panel, and I'm really happy that it was possible to get you all together for this panel. We will hear from our guests who are going to share their experiences, challenges, successes in championing LGBTQIA+ rights in the business world. Now, let's move on to the panel, and I would like to introduce our panelists today. Welcome on stage, Max Appenroth. He's trans activist and founder of Diversity Spark. Welcome, Max. Also, I'd like to welcome up on stage and maybe sit next to Max is Alex Gessner, Chief Operating Officer of ACI Consulting. Welcome, Alex. And I already saw you sitting here, Eva Kreienkamp, former CEO of BVG. That's the Berlin Transport Company. Welcome, it's great to have you here. And last but not least, Magda Weiß, Diversity Officer of the Federal Information Technology Center. Welcome up on stage, please, Magda. So together we're going to talk about how organizations can create inclusive workplaces and provide support for all individuals working in these organizations. And before we start, I'd like to express our gratitude and thank you, Max, for being here today, because I know that you went through two personal tragedies within the last weeks, and then the war in Israel started, and your husband's family is living there. So thanks for being with us tonight, despite these tragedies. Max, you are a trans activist and you're founder of Diversity Spark. You also have played a crucial role in raising awareness and advocating for queer rights. Can you share with us how your personal journey has influenced your work?
Well, my personal journey was quite a ride, I would say, because in total I had 4 coming outs in my life. Like when I was 13, I came out as a lesbian. Then 10 years later, I came out as trans because, you know, growing up in a world, in a binary world, I thought if I'm not a woman, I'm a man. So I said, I'm a trans man, I'm a man. I came out as gay. I'm now married to a wonderful husband. And then I figured out, actually, I'm much more than just a man. Like there's more inside of me, more of who I am, and I identify now as trans non-binary. So this is for me, you know, like 4 coming outs that also have strongly influenced the way how I entered my professional life. Because all the barriers and everything that I experienced in education by being an out young queer person in the country, like in the German countryside, as well as then entering into my professional career in a way that I kind of like, you know, I put my foot into many directions, like into many waters and tried if it's fine, and it wasn't fine. Like the reason why I'm self-employed is because I do not fit in, because there is no place right now where I, as a trans, non-binary, queer person would fit in a way that I actually can be my true self, where I can express my full potential, all of my skills without fearing discrimination, without fearing microaggressions, without, you know, having to educate people in circumstances where I'm just kind of like, seriously? You know, like, those are the reasons why I decided eventually, okay, I just found my own company, I'm gonna be my own boss, because that is the only option that I have right now.
I'm really curious about the strategies you are using to navigate through these challenges. So one of the strategies you already mentioned, not work in the corporate world, which of course is a message we don't like to hear.
Sorry.
But
just the truth.
That's the truth. Do you have other strategies?
I would say like the first and the first and most important thing is like a mutual understanding, that we actually that we show an openness to people, like also for me, that I need to show openness to people that I might judge because of the experiences that I've made in the past, to actually be like, okay, oh, maybe you're not that bad, you know, like not coming with my own prejudices into an environment. And also acknowledging the learning journey that a lot of people have done in the past years, because I see that there's an increase of awareness and knowledge around diversity in general, and I see this with my own company. I'm a diversity consultant, and I see how many companies and people come up to me and be like, Max, we want to know, we want to learn, we want to do it right, help us do this, help us walk the walk. And this is something where I feel like that there is a change. There's a change happening, but also we need to be aware of like the political circumstances that we're in right now that are also kind of like, you know, kicking that change strongly in the butt. Like we need to be careful with everything that we do right now to make sure that we enter the right path so it benefits everyone in the end.
Thank you. We're going to come back to that in just a little bit. Eva, I must admit I'm a fanboy of yours. Because, as I mentioned before, I'm collecting information on queer boards. And so, of course, I was always a fan of knowing that you were the CEO of BVG as a queer person. So as someone who has experienced public challenges in leadership, to call it that way, in addition to your role as an LGBT plus role model, for example, for me, can you share with us the impact that this had on your professional journey?
Thank you for the question. It's a large question. Some of the people who are here I know, and they sort of have been companions on the way of this journey, which is quite nice, and it's been quite long already. For me, it was always important to be out, and I started being out at times when no one actually even knew what I was doing, and having networks in the companies I worked for, or build networks if I wasn't in a company, but wanted to have at least peers. So I built networks all over the place, and next to that I had a professional life. For me, it was always good because I knew there was sort of an anchor point where I could go to, and that is my community. And over time, of course, the community changed, and the aspects of what was being discussed has also changed. When I started understanding that the concept really is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, it sort of got bigger and nicer also, because then you can go into a world of looking at people from all their different aspects, and since the aspects change over time, you know, you're young, then you get older, or you transition in your religion, or you transition in your gender, or you transition in the way you work. And so once you understand that it's all about transitioning, also it's easier to do transformation in business as well. So that got me through a lot of different challenges until I came to BVG, which was so different that I wasn't quite sure what happened there. So maybe I can tell you what happened. I came there as a board, and I was implemented as a board member and the CEO of a company in the city of Germany, which in its idea of being inclusive is there. You know, it's a city of freedom, it's a city of whatever, and the biggest pride and the biggest, and I had this little pin, which is, you can hardly see it. It's the BVG pin of the Rainbow Group on my jacket. And that's when it all started. Because I thought BVG was a company which had actually gone into the realm of being a diverse company and having not only a rainbow network, but also having it ingrained and in its DNA. But that was wrong, and so that was when I came into a situation that pinkwashing was sort of dumped onto me from the board, which was quite a new experience. So this can be so terrifying for other people that you always have to remember, and that's why I understand that you have your own company. Do I want to work in a place like this, where this is terrifying? And I've tried over the years and over the decades to build companies where actually this is not the case. And it went quite well until I came to BVG. So now I'm trying to readjust of how can I again make an impact, and then coming back to what we saw now, all those slides, that HR, who are supposed to be those who help the most, are the ones who are worst. Maybe that's part of the lever we will have in the future.
Yeah, maybe you should see yourself as a pioneer plant. You know, when the world went dry, there were pioneer plants, and they were the first ones to that were able to live like on the dry earth. So maybe you're one of those. Alex, I saw you agreeing with many of the things that Eva said and also that Max said. So based on your journey and accomplishments, what advice would you give to organizations that are striving to create, that actually want to create a more inclusive and supportive workplace? Is it establishing a PIN culture from the first day on?
I think I'm going to give you a lawyer answer. I'm not one, but I hear it all the time. It depends. Like Max, I'm currently lost to the corporate world because I've not been treated with the, I don't know, I don't even want to say respect, but with the same way you'd like to be treated at work. Like Eva, I have a long career of building networks, intersectional networks, because something that's always annoyed me about all the places that I came to in Germany, not in the one American company that I worked, and especially in Berlin, which is a lot worse than Frankfurt in that aspect, was that the networks existed, but they were kind of closed. So there was a women's network, but they didn't care about trans people in the company. And to me, that, then call it a cis women's network, I don't know, that's not very feminist, you know. There was a network for the men that, because there was a women's network, there had to be a men's network. And they established something for the men around pay equity, but then they wouldn't look at the men that were not German citizens and that they required certain, they needed to meet certain criteria to get their blue card visa in Europe. And one of it was a certain salary that you need to get, and that wasn't the case when those requirements changed. And they didn't throw their support behind the many, many international workers that that company had. And so, to me, it is all about taking these large egos that we have and thinking, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a stage, Max. Max doesn't need me to give him a stage, by the way. Has his own stage. Sorry, are he, him your pronouns?
They, both is fine.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, always make sure you check in. Take those big, large egos that we have, especially as leaders. I've been a leader 15 years, and make ourselves very small. Go into everything you do with the very small ego, and before you do anything in supporting the queer network, the pride network, the whatever network, I would like us all to ask ourselves, what have I unlearned recently? When have I let someone challenge me and make me change my opinion? This goes out to not maybe the queer leaders, because some of you know this, but the cis allies we have in the room, all the leaders that I think you're talking about. I can go on for longer, but we don't have a lot of time. But the biggest thing is listen to the people that are there and to what they're saying and what they're willing to say. It's not their job to educate you, but the things they are willing to share, listen to that, and work on yourself before you start putting out networks or changes or new policies or going to someone to create an event. All of those things are important, please don't get me wrong. But when you start with yourself, make sure you come from a place of unlearning rather than a place of saviorism.
Thank you. And also maybe try to find in which aspects you are diverse yourself, right? Because in the end, I mean, many people are diverse in many ways without noticing. Magda, so you're still in the corporate world. We haven't lost you, grabbing to you. So you're diversity officer at the Federal Information Technology Center, and you play a key role in shaping the company's culture, of course. Can you share some of the key strategies and initiatives that you're doing?
Yeah, 2 years ago we founded an ERG for LGBT employees. We started with workshops for managers, how to be an ally, what is transition, how can I be supportive for LGBT employees, because as we saw before, a lot of people are not comfortable being out and proud at work, especially towards their managers. And yeah, that was a huge step for us. And a lot of people were like, oh, I didn't realize being queer is such a huge thing in the workplace. What was very important for us. Now we are having smaller work groups. One is for allyship, one is for trans, and now we are doing restroom notices where it says, you're welcome here, trans, inter, non-binary colleagues, you can use the restrooms you wanted to use, you feel comfortable with, because we don't have unisex toilets everywhere. It's public sector. Everything's a bit slower, but we're on the right way. And I think, one of the most successes is when people come to me and they're like, I didn't realize I was putting so much energy in hiding my sexual identity, my gender identity, and I don't want to do this anymore. And thanks for founding this ERG. And as the ERG is so successful, we are now putting more effort in more diversity dimensions and going towards more diversity. As for example, my role is pretty new to the organization, diversity officer, and I'm very glad that we're on the right path.
You also already mentioned that one of the successes is that people actually come to you and tell you how they feel about it. Do you have other impacts that you could share with us that these efforts have, like on the success of individuals, of teams, of the company?
I think for the company it was quite important that we are now moving towards more diversity, that people are coming like, oh, you have an ERG for LGBT people, can we do the same thing for neurodivergent people? And that's I think one of the most important steps that people see, not only LGBT issues are part of our culture.
Now, Max, now that you heard all these advices and all the good ideas from companies, would these ideas have made you stay in the past? Or what else would you have expected in order to stay in the corporate world?
I mean, for me, the point is what I keep telling people throughout my work is being welcome is one thing. Like, there's so many companies that tell me, like, you're welcome here. Or other people, migrants, refugees, people with disabilities, people with neurodiversities, whatever. Everyone is welcome. But that isn't enough. This is not enough if the doors are open. Like, this is what it should be, of course, but like at the same time, if the structures inside, if the mindset, if the core, if really like the integral part of the company is not ready for me, then being welcome is just like a type of lip service. You know, like being welcome is one thing, but belonging is much better. And like to create this sense of belonging really needs to what Alex said is like it's a part of unlearning. It's a part of unlearning and, you know, inviting discomfort in. Inviting discomfort in and sitting it out for a moment, because what comes out in the end is joy and happiness for everyone. It will be like maybe kind of like a moment of a rough patch, and it might be also like discomfort at some point. But what follows this discomfort is liberty, is kind of like really like this feeling of belonging for yourself, but for everyone else in the company as well. And this is something where if companies like invite me in, I really ask them if they're ready for a change, because many of the companies, they're not ready for a change. They're just like, yeah, I know we need to do that. We need to do diversity, and we want to do diversity, but then you can already see like the sweat popping out of their head of like, oh my God, but I don't want to change anything. That doesn't work. And we need the change. Like we need the change that is like, present in society. Diversity is present in society, and this needs to be reflected in old company structures as well.
Yeah, it's maybe because we humans are like that, right? I mean, it takes you usually 50 years to take the message really seriously that you somehow have to spare some of your money for when you're not 25 anymore. But you tell that a 25-year-old person, and that person will say, hey, no. Yeah. So Magda, you already mentioned that it's not only about LGBTIQ+. It's about diversity of all kind. Let's talk about I hate that word. Intersectionality. Why is it important that it is key of all DE&I initiatives?
I think it's important to have all the voices to be heard and all the different perspectives on different issues. And that, we carry it with, I think the most important thing is transparency and honesty. There's nothing more annoying than just pinkwashing, as you said, and pretending that things are different. And this is how we can get those voices on the table. And for example, we are planning those improvements for trans people. But we are in our work group, there were only cis people. And we said, yeah, we want to do this. We have this idea, we have all these texts, awareness messages, but we are only allies, and we need those voices that are, they are important, and that's how we got trans people involved and to participate. And I can't emphasize it enough. It's honesty is the most important thing.
Alex, do you have a different view on that as an external consultant, or would you agree 100%?
Of course. Well, first of all, I think it's always important when we use this word to remember that a Black woman coined it, Kimberly Crenshaw, and that tells you everything that you need to know about this word, really, because we use it everywhere and we keep forgetting its origins. I have the same perspective. I hope everyone that's in the diversity space has the perspective of, it's not just that the voices are important, the voices are a part of our community. To me, there isn't a queer community and a straight community. Of course, there are many communities, but it is one community, and we do not exist in a vacuum. Maybe if our story would have been different had she been a gay man, we have no idea. Because she's a woman and she's queer. Those are two different identities, two different diversity dimensions that converge, and maybe there's even more. All of us, hopefully, many of us know there's more than 7 dimensions, despite one of the biggest diversity players in Germany tries to say. It is 9. It is 9 dimensions, and they're also flippin' important because 1, social justice, but 2, the demographic change. In the next 7 years, 50% of all people that work today are going to go and retire. Those people are going to have to be replaced, if not all of them, at least some of them. In Germany, 90% of men are already working. They cannot work more. So who's going to close this gap? It's going to be migrants, it's going to be women, it's going to be older and younger generations. And none of them want to work in companies where only the Albright thingy came out today, right? Thomas and Christians get promoted, but nobody else. So intersectionality is key for everything we're trying to do, but so is, I want to go back to that point I said earlier, understanding that our factory settings are also intersectional. Our factory settings are, we are racist, sexist, transphobic sponges, sorry to say, all of us are. And it's not like a phone where you can toggle a button to be, racist off, sexist off, I don't want to be that. The opposite is not being racist. The opposite is being anti-racist, anti-sexist. And I wish that that understanding was out there more. Maybe then some of us would still be in the corporate world, but it's also good that we're here today. So if you haven't understood today how important intersectionality is, while not diminishing single groups' fights in all of this, it's very important, then I want to talk in 2030 and see if your business still exists.
Okay, we'll do that next year. Eva, last question to you. When we talked about this podium before, you were so clear that one topic was missing, and that was privileges. And we all agreed that most leaders in most organizations are in some way privileged. What is the role that privileged leaders play in changing corporate culture?
Well, it's a little bit also in the way of unlearning and understanding who you are, what your identity is, and what you received when you were born, where you were born, as what you were born, and what that gave you to start off in a sometimes very good life. And next to being grateful for all that, I think it's very important to know all that and to know what advantages you had on the way. And coming from there, then saying, okay, what can I do about those advantages I had, and opening up and saying, that is something I can share with others so that there might be greater advantages for a larger group. But before that is actually possible, we have to get out of this myth of, I made it myself, it's all meritocracy, what it's called, and I really did my job well, and I have the best connections, and it's because of me. And so it belongs to the ego part. Reduce the ego, start understanding that you're also interconnected with everyone else, and then we might come to even a corporate world where it gets clearer that everyone can talk about themselves, their identities, and who they are. And it starts usually with those who are privileged when they are suddenly in a situation where they're not quite as privileged anymore. And that is usually when they are sick. They have cancer suddenly, and then they start talking about themselves. But that's too late. Maybe it would be easier if we start that earlier and really understand how the career paths work and the demographics work and these privileges work. And we all have some, depending on where we come from. And I think that's a way forward really for companies and the people in the companies to get a little bit better.
Thank you. And I think that's a great message from this panel to the corporate world. Get rid of your egos out there. Thank you very much for joining me, Max, Alex, Eva, and Magda. It was great having you up on stage.